What's up, everybody? I'm Chris with Profoto, and this is Geared Up. This is our weekly live broadcast where we talk about gear, from techniques to technical aspects of things. We take questions, we answer stuff, we learn to light, we have a good time. Today, we're going to be diving into flash power. Kind of getting a little nerdy, a little technical. Not really taking any images today, and by not really, I mean we're not taking images today. It's mostly about understanding flash power and understanding how the flash power, when it comes to Profoto, works, especially when it comes to the power scale. Understanding kind of the comparisons between what setting on one light kind of corresponds to the next light and stuff like that. So with that being said, we're going to dive into things falling, because we're back. That's what we do. We drop stuff. Lots of shenanigans. But we have three lights here, and we're going to talk about them together. But let's talk about flash power specifically and kind of how it's rated. So most of the time, whenever you're buying a flash, you're going to see 500 watt seconds, 250 watt seconds, 100 watt seconds. What does that mean? A watt second is just a term for the storage of energy. So the capacitors can hold, this B10X right here can hold 250 watt seconds of power in the capacitors, and then it can output that light through the electronics into the flash tube, firing off the light. That is the simplistic way. That's the simple way of thinking about it. The tough thing about watt seconds is it's not a super good measure of what a light can do. There are some things that have inferior electronics on the insides of them, so that 250 watt seconds, it has a harder time turning into actual light output. One of the things that we try to do at Profoto is make sure that the circuitry is such that it's the most efficient it can be getting the light from one side, from the capacitors to the output. So that's one of the nice things about that. A better form of measurement is going to be using a guide number, setting your light at a certain distance and taking a light measurement from there. That's going to give you a better, truer understanding of the kind of light output you're going to get from your light. The tough thing whenever it comes to a lot of stuff like that is pretty much everybody, including us, measures their guide number with like a high output reflector on the front of it. So make sure you're paying attention whenever you're looking at lights like that too, that you're seeing that, hey, like for us, for example, you'll see a lot of stuff that says, this light is this guide number at this distance with the magnum reflector. Most people have some sort of high output reflector just to kind of make the guide number a little bit nicer. But that's going to be a better, truer way of understanding kind of how the power on these things works. But again, the watt second is just the energy that's inside the unit, not really a true measure of the light that you're going to get out, but that's the kind of number that you always see used to describe the lights. Again, the upside for Profoto is we take a lot of time and make sure that we're using good electronics, that we're using high quality capacitors and electronics that can actually get that energy from the capacitors out of the flash tube to give you the most energy that you can get with that setup. That being said, let's talk about how these watt seconds, and this is going to be a relatively short live. Please ask questions if you have any.
See, Niall is asking, I have two A2s and two B10s, but interested in the B10 Plus output.
Cool.
So
we're actually going to talk about that right now. So you said it was Nyla?
Niall, yeah.
Niall?
Yeah.
Cool, Niall. Niall was curious about how the light output differs between the three. Luckily, we were just getting to that portion of what we're going to be talking about today. So again, we have a B10X Plus, 500 watt seconds, B10 A2. So I'm gonna mostly talk about the B10 for just a second, so you understand the how our power scale works at Profoto, and then we're going to jump in and just show you kind of the differences, how that correlates between the different lights. So I'm going to take this B10. I'm going to move closer. Kate, you might wind up having to refocus, because I'm going to try to get closer so people can see and understand.
Friends. There we go.
Cool. And then we'll just refocus when we go back. So a lot of times people see these numbers and they're like, what does this stuff mean? Like, how does it work? What does your flash scale mean? So our stuff works in relative f-stop. So it's relative to the f-stop's relative to the light. So 10 is full power. A lot of times in just being out in the world and talking to people, they're like, oh, like I love, most of the time I'm shooting the light at half power. So you take 10, you divide it by 2, cut it in half, that's 5. That's not how light works. So again, we're working in stops. We're not working in the number that you see here. So that's a stop, 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 that's a stop. Stops work in doubling or halving your light is going up a stop or down a stop. So if you go down 1 stop to 9, you've halved the light. That's half power, okay? So 9 in the Profoto system is half power. So I went from 250 watts here to 125 watts, if that makes sense. So again, a stop, to gain a stop of light, you have to double the output. To lose a stop of light, you have to half the output, right? So since these are stops that you're controlling you're controlling the light in stops. By taking it down 1 stop, you've halved the light output. So now you're shooting, again, 125. So if you do it again, down to 8, you're now at a quarter power. You go to 7, 8th power, 16th, 32nd, 64th power, 128th. I'm about to just butcher all this stuff. 256th power, 5, 12th power, and then all the way down to 1,000 somethings of power.
Yeah.
A lot of stops of light down. You can go from a lot of juice to a super low number and just kind of get a little kiss of light if that's what you need for your scene, especially for cameras these days with super high ISOs and lenses now that are sub 1 f-stop. I know that they've been out there before, but you're starting to see kind of those things coming back around some more. But that's how the Profoto light scale works. So hopefully you understand that, again, 10 is full power, 9 is half power, but that's because when you cut light by a stop, you're cutting it in half. And then you just keep halving it all the way down through the scale. So hopefully that makes sense for you on the Profoto light scale setup.
Do you want to look at Ricky Sharp? It's the first time in here today. He's joining us for the first time.
Ricky's joining us for the first time today? Ricky, thanks. Ricky, thank you.
Focus.
Cool.
Okay.
And I'm gonna point all this forward.
Yeah, I do wish. This is not how you read it. Yeah, I do wish we have a guide number value, but I did find that the B10X Plus is the equivalent of 8 Canon 600EX RTS. So guide number would be around 480 meters.
Yeah.
Or 1500.
Yeah. So we've always said that, and we try to measure all this stuff.
I could put this on the other screen.
You said it was Ricky again?
Yes.
Ricky, thank you so much for your input. And thanks for coming and hanging out with us. So Ricky was saying that he's done the measurements before too, and he got roughly the same. So, was it the plus that he said? Because that should be the plus, based off those numbers.
But I did find that the B10X Plus.
Yeah, the plus.
Yeah.
So he was getting about the B10X Plus. He was getting about the equivalent to 8 speed lights. Depending on the speed light, we've always said that the B10 gives you the equivalent of 4 to 5 speed lights, whereas the B10 Plus or B10X Plus gives you the equivalent to 8 to 10 speed lights. So that kind of, if someone's already a speed light shooter, that can kind of give you the idea of what you're stepping into when you get to something like this. So
how do
cool.
you get to go down each without scrolling through all the?
Oh, so the A2 doesn't do it, but if you actually, a lot of people don't. Maybe people don't know this, but you can actually press the dial in, and when you press the dial in, you'll see the tenth of a spot disappear, and then you can turn the dial, so you can actually move in full stops. With the previous, so the Air TTL remote and the original, the Connect Pro doesn't do this, but with the original the Air TTL remote and the original Air remote, if you hold the plus or minus button down instead of just clicking it, if you hold it down, it will also move in full stops. So another little fun thing that you may not know about how the remotes work. So all the lights do that. The packs all that stuff. I think ever since the Pro 8 pack and the D1, you could do the press and turn for full stops. The only two lights that we make that don't do that are the A series stuff, the things in the A series line. So hopefully that answered that question.
And Mora says, if you only knew the power.
So now let's talk about how these lights compare to one another, because I again, people hear like 100 watt seconds, 250 watt seconds, 500 watt seconds, in their brain they're like, whoa, those are big numbers. It's a huge difference between something like that. And then to see like something like an A2, and then you see the size of a B10, and then you see the size of a B10X Plus, you're like, okay, like you're trying to work out in your brain, what's the best light for me to do the thing that I need to do versus like how much do I want to carry around and all that stuff like that. So we're going to talk about your actual light output now and what you can expect from some of this stuff. So let's go. Let's get everything powered up. Let's give it everything even, and so we can see everything. Cool. So when you're talking about the A2 at 10, you're taking all 100 watt seconds of juice inside the capacitors and you're throwing it through the flash tube. That's a full power pop. That's at setting of 10. Same thing with the B10. Same thing with the B10X Plus. If you're at 10, you're running 250 watts. You're draining all of the capacitors and jamming it out of the flash tube. You're getting the most light output. Same thing with 500 watt seconds. But how do they correspond to each other? So now that we understand how the power scale works from the Profoto side of it, 10 being 250 watt seconds on a B10, if we drop this down to 9, we're now to 125 watt seconds versus 100 watt seconds. So if we wanted to get closer, if we got to about 8.7, 8.8, these are pushing out the exact same amount of energy as one another through a flash tube. Now, where this being set the way it's set is better than this being set the way that it's set is, now you're over one stop lower light output on this one than you are here. So what that's going to do for you is give you better recycle speed. It's going to give you better recycle speed. It's going to give you more flashes out of your battery. So these are all things to consider when you're trying to decide your light. Now, what are you giving up? You're giving up size. Is it that much bigger of a difference in the light? Not really, but you are giving up size. It is a bigger light. It has to be bigger. It has larger capacitors inside of it. So there you go between the differences in that light. Say you want to go to the B10X Plus. So we know that this at full power, 250, would be the same thing as this light at 9. That's 250 watt seconds on the B10 Plus. Compared to the B10. So same idea, but now if we want to drop it down to 8, now we're at that 125 watt seconds. So let's just drop it down to the 7.7. This is the same light output as an A2. So this is showing you two things. One, this is showing you how powerful the A2 is. It's a beefy little light for, like, as far as output wise, for the size of the thing that you're actually getting. But again, I know that I'm all, it's funny. I looked over at the screen. All I saw was like a hand. Yeah. But what's cool is, it's like I'm a maestro.
Yeah.
It's good.
But what's cool is, again, at 10 here and 7.7 here, what you're getting is you're getting more battery life. You're getting even faster recycle speeds, which is really, really cool. Again, you're giving up size. It's a bigger light. It's about the size of a traditional 70 to 200 2.8 lens. It's a little bit bigger light. Not too bad to travel with. Honestly, I shoot a lot outdoors. I'm gonna get over here because I'm kind of talking to a wall. I shoot outdoors a lot. I generally always take a B10X Plus with me. For me, it's a, I would rather have the power than not have the power, essentially. I'd rather be able to, have the power up there, turn it down, get some more battery life, get some more recycle speed. And then if the conditions are as such where I need to push it to 10, I have the ability to do that. So, but hopefully that helps you understand how the power scale at Profoto works. I keep standing off screen because I'm trying to keep these lights as close to you as I can. But hopefully that helps you understand how the power scale works. So the idea was to help you understand what watt seconds were, what they do and why they matter and don't matter. Again, kind of going back to the idea of a guide number is going to be a little bit truer representation of what you're actually going to receive whenever you fire off a flash. Whereas a watt second is just a measurement of energy storage inside of the lights. But again, hopefully this gives you a better understanding of how these things compare to one another. And then, if you take a step higher and you go to the D2 1000, that would you'd just be doubling up this again. So that's kind of how all that stuff works. So you would.
One more question.
Yes.
Would you say that many photographers try to keep the same lights when using multiples just to simplify power calculations, or mix and match? I'm tempted to get multiple B10 plus units instead of mixing B10 plus and B10. B10 X plus. And
so the question was, do you find that the question is, do you find that people generally tend to stick with the same lights when they're using a multiple light setup? I think it's kind of it's hit and miss. I think so. For one thing, for example, I generally like to use, especially when I have to go overhead or something like that, I like to use something smaller, just because there's just less weight up there. Or I'll use a pack and head system, which I understand not everybody has the access to that kind of stuff. So I will go with something smaller. The downside for that is, you're using click light shaping tools versus, your other traditional 100 millimeters. Now you could adapt it with the OCF adapter, or the click OCF adapter, which is good. But it's just another element of something you have to do. Whereas if you're in the B10 system, you have a whole bunch of modifiers with the 100 millimeter mount, it might just be simpler to stay here. I think in talking about how the power scale works and getting a better understanding of how all that stuff correlates makes it a little bit easier, I hope, for you to understand, how you would mix and match all these lights together simply. Now, granted, you're generally setting these lights up to do different things, so having the power scale be the exact same between this, that, and the other, I don't personally, it doesn't matter that much for me, because I'll just control the lights to do exactly what I need them to do, and they're generally not ever set to the same thing. The only time that I can imagine that they'd be set to the same thing is if I was making like a wall of lights and I needed them all to be the same. So I would, be running them all through like the same umbrella or something like that. So it's really long-winded way of saying it's a personal preference. The nice thing about mixing and matching is you have certain tools for certain jobs. And if you need to, pack a lot lighter for something, you could go with something like an A2 for a gig. But if you knew that you're going to be somewhere where you might be challenged with your light, you could throw your B10X Plus into your bag like I do whenever I go on location. So it's just, I think thinking about, one, your photography and your style, and two, just kind of pre-planning for whatever might get thrown at you. So hopefully that was a good answer.
Oh.
Anything else?
Pop it in there if you have any questions.
Yeah,
guys.
we're this close to signing off. Again, it's not a super heavy live. It's just to help you better understand how our power structure works at Profoto. Do we have something?
I do over 1,000 headshots a year with my B10s,
Mm-hmm.
and use one for a spot vignette on my background.
You can throw that up on the screen too if you want for people to see.
Sorry. There you go, friends. Was thinking about buying a fourth B10, but thinking the A2 will be better choice for that. Does the A2 have a reflector for it?
So I'm guessing. So just I can't read from that far away, but it says they want a light just to throw up on the background.
They use a B10 for their background vignette. Was thinking about buying a fourth B10.
Yeah,
but thinking the A2 will be a better choice for that.
Oh, I mean, the upside for the A2 is going to be easier to hide. It's smaller. Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great for it. So it depends on the reflector that you're looking for. I mean, we have a lot of stuff. We have. I'm going to go off screen for just a half second. We have I apparently have a bag. But we have a lot of stuff. Wow, I'm just.
Yes, for the background.
Yeah, for the background stuff. So let's see, we got that. So depending on how big of an opening that you need or how big of a spot. I mean, we have snoots. You make like a smaller spot if you needed. We have grids. We make them in 10 and 20 degrees that you just snap on the front like that. And then we have the Click. Oh, here, you take that from me. Yeah, I'll turn it around. But then we also have the Click Magnum. The cool thing about the Click Magnum is you get about 1.7 more stops light output, so almost 2 more stops. So that goes back to that same conversation we had just a second ago about being able to turn the light power down and get more battery life out of it. So, but yeah, that's a great little reflector.
Can you tell the difference between the B10 and the B10X with constant light?
The exact same constant light. They both. So the constant light doesn't really go off of the capacitors. The constant light's just drawing from. I mean, I'm sure there's some capacitors in there to keep everything kind of flicker free and stuff like that, because you can run some. You can run video around there, and they're flicker free all the way through the range. But they don't run through the same output like flash capacitors. So they have the exact same continuous light setups in both the Plus and the B10. So there's no difference there.
Can the click system be used with the B10?
Can the click system be used with the B10? No. And here, I'll just, for the easiest, simplest way of showing you why. Size of the light.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can really see it, but there's you'd be cutting off so much of the actual outside of the reflector that I think it's just I don't think it'd be a big point to it.
All right, and then the A10 question, they said the Click Magnum would do great for what?
Yeah, Click Magnum's a fantastic modifier. Again, it would give you a nice little spot. I think it's about a 25-degree beam spread, 25 to 27 or something like that. There's so many numbers, it's hard to remember stuff all the time. But again, the upside is the light output you're going to get from it is going to give you the ability to turn this power down 1.7 stops from where it would have been originally, and you're going to get more battery life, which is pretty.
What did I say? No, not the B10X Plus. I meant the original B10 versus the B10X.
Gotcha. So the B10X versus the B10's continuous light changed by, I'm going to spout a percentage and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I think it's 30%. So they want to know what the original continuous light versus the B10X's newer continuous light output is. I believe that I'm trying to, again, numbers, and I'm pretty close, but I'm not going to nail it. But I'm pretty sure that the original B10 was about 2,700 lumens on the light output. And this one, I believe, is around 3,250. I'm trying. it's a lot of numbers. And we have a lot of lights with a lot of numbers. But hopefully it's about a 30 to 40% bump, I think, light output wise from what I remember. But I think those are roughly the numbers. Again, I butchered it. You can still get that information online. My brain just is filled with cookies instead of information. So anything else?
I think we got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Again, really, it's a really light topic today.
Wow.
Yeah, I caught myself in the middle of my thing. So, but pretty simple stuff. Again, just going through the power scale. Just a quick recap for anyone who's just joined us on the power scale wise. Let's use a bigger screen. On the B10 or on any of Profoto Light, 10 is full power, 9 is half power, not 5. So if you are like, do I have enough light output to do something? Generally, the answer is yes. Most of the time, I see people shooting the B10 at like 7. So you have a lot of light output, top and bottom. This is 1/16 power, 1/8 power, something like that. Again, I'm having to math on the fly real fast. It's not working for me too good. But the rule is, in order to gain a stop of light, you have to double the power. In order to lose a stop of light, you have to half the power. So if I'm going down one stop, that's halving the power. That's 125 watt seconds. That's half power on a light. And it's the same way through all the stuff, whether it be an A10 or a Pro 11. that's how they control. So hopefully,
we do have one thing. So
one final
curious
question.
If I could consider upgrading to use them for the Peter Hurdy triangle.
Oh, totally.
Hurley triangle.
Yeah.
For like headshots.
Yeah, 100%. So someone wants to do like the Peter Hurley triangle for lights. You 100% could. I mean, I shot with Peter for years, and we had the constant lights, but then when we were out in the field, we used flashes a lot of the times. I still use this with strip boxes if I'm looking for a look like that with my flashes all the time. It's marvelous. I like it better than going with the constant light thing, because the constant lights they're not the least expensive thing in the entire world. Neither are these, but these are more versatile. So whereas I could turn the power down really, really low and shoot a relatively shallow depth of field headshot and get that same triangle look, I could also bump the power up and go outside and bring that ambient light down. It's more of a tool that's going to do a lot of things, whereas a constant light has a hard time overpowering a lot of things. So unless you're shooting like a 10K or a 20K, and those things are massive. So
cool.
good, awesome. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. Again, we were just talking about flash power, comparing the lights, helping you understand how the Profoto power scale works. I hope it was good information. Come back and check it out some other time. If you have any questions, feel free to DM us, DM me. We can talk about whatever. If you have any ideas of stuff that you'd like to see in the future, we have some cool stuff planned for this year. Trying out some things that we haven't done before, but just to expand the repertoire and learn some stuff with you. In the meantime, have an awesome rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Peace out.